seventh Sunday after Trinity, Mark 8, 1-9. In those days, when there was again a great multitude, and they had nothing to eat, he called unto him his disciples, and saith unto them, I have compassion on the multitude, because they continue with me now 3 days, and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away fasting to their home, they will faint on the way, and some of them are come from far. And his disciples answered him, Whence shall one be able to fill these men with bread here in a desert place? And he asked them, How many loaves have ye? And they said, 7. And he commandeth the multitude to sit down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves, and having given thanks, he brake and gave to his disciples to set before them. And they set them before the multitude. And they had a few small fishes, and having blessed them, he commanded to set these also before them. And they ate and were filled, and they took up of broken pieces that remained over 7 baskets, and they were about 4,000, and he sent them away. Jesus feeds the 4,000 with 7 loaves and a few small fishes. Part 1, Concerning Faith, Paragraph 1. Beloved friends, I hope you thoroughly understand this gospel, for you are now sufficiently established in the truth to know what we should expect in the gospel and what is presented to us there, namely, the true nature and life of faith. Because of this, Christ is pictured and represented so lovingly in all the gospel lessons. Although his history and works are ever changing, yet the plain, simple faith remains ever the same. Today's gospel paints to us the Lord in a way that we may fully know how we should esteem him, namely, that he is merciful, meek, and loving, that he gladly helps everybody and freely associates and deals with all people, and such a picture as this faith really craves. Paragraph 2. Therefore the Scriptures present to us a double picture. One is that of fear or overpowering picture of the severe wrath of God, before which no one can stand, but must despair unless he has faith. In contrast with this, the picture of grace is presented to us in order that faith may behold it and obtain for itself an agreeable and comforting refuge in God, with the hope that man cannot expect so much from God, that there is not still much more to be had from him. Paragraph 3. You have often heard that there are also 2 kinds of possessions, spiritual and temporal. Today's gospel treats of the temporal and bodily blessings, teaches us the faith of the child, and it is a picture for the weak in that they should look to God for everything good, and that they might thus later learn to trust God and depend upon him for spiritual blessings. If we are instructed in the gospel how Christ feeds our stomachs, we can then conclude that he will also feed and clothe our souls. For if I cannot trust him to sustain my body, much less can I trust him to sustain my soul forever. For example, if I cannot trust a person that he will give me $1, how can I trust him that he will give me 10? If I cannot expect from a person that he will give me a piece of bread, much less could I have any hope that he would give me a house and yard and the whole earth. Paragraph 4. Now, he who cannot, like the babe on its mother's breast, have a child faith, will hardly hope that God will forgive him his sins and save his soul forever. For the soul is inexpressibly more than the stomach, for which also Christ has compassion, as the gospel today proves. Therefore St. Peter said correctly in 1 Peter 2, 1-3, Beloved brethren, putting away therefore all wickedness and all guile and hypocrisies and envies and all evil speakings, as newborn babes, long for the spiritual milk which is without guile, that ye may grow thereby unto salvation, if ye have tasted that the Lord is gracious. For it is not enough that a babe should imbibe milk, but it must also grow large and strong, that it may learn later to eat bread and hard food. Paragraph 5. But to feed on milk means to taste the favor and the kind grace of God. To taste the goodness of God means to experience it in one's life. For should I preach 100 years of God, how kind, sweet, and good he is, that he condescends to help man, and I have not yet myself tasted it through experience, thus all is still in vain, and no one is in this way taught to trust God rightly. From this you can conclude what a rare person a true Christian is. For there are many who say they trust in God for their daily bread, but that floats only upon the tongue and hangs in the ears. It never enters the heart where it belongs. Paragraph 6. Now let us observe in this example what the life and nature of faith are. The apostle in the epistle to the Hebrews writes thus, Now faith is assurance of things hoped for, a conviction of things not seen. That is as much as to say, faith is the means by which one trusts in possessions he does not see, namely, that I should expect temporal things which I can neither see nor hear, but I must only hope for them, as is the case in today's gospel. There were many people together, about 4,000, who with their wives and children had had nothing to eat for the space of 3 days. I judge that can be called fasting, but were extremely hungry, far from home, without any provisions on which the body lives. Now the apostle says, Faith is that through which I hope for things I cannot see. Such a faith the great multitude of people here has. They see no food, and yet they hope that God will nourish them. Paragraph 7. Now what does Christ do in this case? What attitude does he take to this transaction? He must not have had much tact, for he goes to the disciples and asks, How shall one feed all these? They reply, Oh, who will be able to feed such a great multitude of people with bread in the wilderness? But here you see how little human thoughts and faith harmonize. Here you see the wiser reason is, the less it accomplishes in the works of God. Therefore Christ asked his disciples that everyone might learn to know by experience what reason is, and acknowledge how reason and faith in no way agree. Here we learn to blindfold reason when we begin to believe, and then give reason a permanent furlough. Paragraph 8. Take an example. If I were a man who had a wife and children, and had nothing for them, and no one gave me anything, then I should believe and hope that God would sustain me. But if I see that it amounts to nothing, and I am not helped with food and clothing, what takes place? Then, as an unbelieving fool, I begin to doubt, and go and take whatever is at hand, steal, deceive, cheat the people, and make my way the best I can and may. See, this is what shameless unbelief does. But if I am a believer, then I close my eyes and say, O God, I am thy creature and thy handiwork, and thou hast from the beginning created me. I will depend entirely upon you, who cares more for me, how I shall be sustained, than I do myself. Thou wilt indeed nourish me, feed, clothe, and help me, where and when you know best. Paragraph 9. Thus faith is a sure foundation, through which I expect that which I see not. Therefore faith must always have sufficient, for before it should fail, the angels would have to come from heaven and dig bread out of the earth in order that believing persons should be fed. Yes, the heavens and the earth would have to pass away before God would let his believers lack clothing and the other necessaries of life. The comforting and powerful word of the divine promise requires and demands this. David boasts of this in Psalm 37:25, I have been young, and now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. And in the verses just preceding in Psalm 37:18 and 19, he says, Jehovah knoweth the days of the perfect, and their inheritance shall be forever. They shall not be put to shame in the time of evil, and in the days of famine they shall be satisfied. Paragraph 10. But when one inquires of reason for counsel, it soon says, It is not possible. Yes, you must wait a long time until roasted ducks fly into your mouth, for reason sees nothing, grasps nothing, and nothing is present. Just so the apostles do also here, who thought, Yes, who will provide food for so many? No one is able to do that. But had they seen a great pile of money, and in addition tables laden with bread and meat, they would have discovered good counsel, and been able to give good consolation. That would have gone according to their thinking very reasonably. However, since they saw nothing, they could find no counsel, but held it to be impossible that one should thus feed so many people, and especially since no provisions were at hand.